80s or 90s music this morning. It's like everybody decided this was a holiday somewhere. I don't know. Happy Indigenous People Day, happy Columbus Day. I think the rest of the world probably works today. I don't know. Happy Monday. Let's go with that. All right. What you know? Somebody's going to say something. Anybody? Okay, moving on. All right. Well, let's jump in. So the numbers this week, we'll hit them quick. Broward County single family inventory number came in at like 886. One thing that's interesting, we should probably point out is notice like August numbers were in the thousands, and then it started to come down into the 900s. Forget these 4 weeks here, but we're kind of at 886, 945, 850 in Broward single family. We've got 163 that went active under contract and 163 that went pending. That's like 320 over the last 7 days, which still is kind of holding my storyline true that the market is heating up, not slowing down right at the moment. We're still seeing a bigger activity of going under contracts, which I find really healthy right now going into the fourth quarter. Closings, we had 204 in the last 7 days, but we had 286 into the month the week before, so that makes sense. And then if I run down to condos in Broward, 974, big active number here. We've got 120 that went active under contract. We have 100 that went pending. Same storyline, like the market is speeding up, not slowing down right now. And 145 closed out, which is still a large number considering it's not the end of the month. And then if I run over to Miami-Dade on single family, we've got 848 active activity status change in the last 7 days. Compared to August numbers, it's actually a little bit higher in Miami-Dade single family. Put a pin in that because we're going to talk about inventory here in one of these articles. 115 went under contract, active under contract, and 171 pending. Same deal, it's speeding up. 189 closed out, 243 at the end of the month. Looks pretty consistent, maybe a little bit lower than what it was running at. And then the Miami condo market, 1,031 active status change the last 7 days, 1,071 the week before. Big increases over the last 2 weeks. We've got 97 that went under contract in the last 7 days, active under contract, 111 that went pending. This is a big, like if I just add these together, that's 208. And if you go back to the second week of August, we had 56 and 56. So it's almost double the number of properties going under contract compared to August in condos. Now, that's a big deal, I think. That is a heating up, a movement going on. And then if I run over to Palm Beach County real quick, we've got 841 active status changes, a little bit less than what was happening in August. 179 active under contract and 109 pending for a total of 288. And compared to that same week in August, we had 205, 317. So it's certainly slower in Palm Beach than it was, but Miami and Broward, it's speeding up. And then the condo world in Palm Beach, 712, 88 active under contract, 69 pending. That has heated up. So single family in Palm Beach County, slowed down, condos speeded up. Richard, you've been studying stats longer down there than I have. What do you see?
I, I wish I had a positive answer for you, Brett. This time of year, from now to the end of the year, things normally slow down. And yet what you're seeing in the statistics is it's not. They're holding even in some markets and actually getting a little bit stronger in others. The only thing I can come up with is A, interest rates are having an effect on some buyers getting off the fence and getting back out there. And B, in any shift, the natives get restless after a while. People have been sitting on the sideline for so long, they're tired and they're going, okay, this is the way it is or the way it's going to be. Let's get back in and start looking.
Yeah, I think like if somebody's overweight and they decide, hey, I know I need to get in the gym, I know I need to get healthy, and they just keep putting it off, at some point in time, they get tired of waiting and then they take action. And that's just a weird analogy, but at the same time, I think people look at those interest rates and it causes them to procrastinate. But at some point in time, they get tired of procrastinating. And I think we're kind of at that moment, right? That's what the real estate shifts look like, is that consumer mentality on the back end of that shift starts to speed up. And great real estate agents take advantage of that and exponentially increase their business. So we're kind of on the back end of a shifted real estate market. And you know, I spent 6 hours with Gary Keller last Tuesday, and he made a couple interesting comments, but two that I think are worthy. And I'm quoting him, but don't quote him on social media because I don't have permission. One was that he believes the real estate market will be completely self-corrected by the second half of 2026. And he said, look, you got to understand there's three big variables. There's unemployment, and unemployment is going up right now. GDP, which is consumers spending money, which is going down right now. So he said, if you just took those two variables, all intelligence would tell us they're going to lower interest rates. However, there's a third variable, which is inflation. And inflation's actually creeping back up right now, which creates the definition of what's called stagflation, which just means it's confused. So, but he believes that they are going to pull interest rates down into 2026. And he believes by about the second half of 2026, that the real estate market will have been self-corrected. And then we're all steam, all pass forward, right? Which I found that to be quite encouraging. I don't know, thoughts?
Richard nailed it in terms of the psychology of waiting and waiting. You know, people move based on a couple of things, either opportunity or, you know, away from fear. And I think the new norm is no longer new, and it's kind of become just the accepted norm. So the risk side of making a decision today seems a lot less impact rich. In other words, I don't, you know, we've kind of landed where we are and we've been steady and stable for a while, even though it's not exactly what we're after in terms of movement in the market and inventory, but it's still, the risk seems a little bit less daunting. And when the rates dip a little bit, now it looks like an opportunity, not, oh my gosh, maybe one day it's 3% again.
Yeah, the other thing I'm waiting for, Brett, the Chartmaster numbers for the quarter should be coming out to us very shortly. The monthly numbers just came out. And with all of these stats that you're showing for the three different counties, I don't have a definitive answer for it, but my gut feel is we are still seeing a very split market down here. The mid to high end market is still staying relatively strong. I'm watching what my wife is doing and what other agents out there, and we're seeing them taking listings and they're going under contract almost immediately when they're priced properly and they're in that $1 million, give or take a couple 100,000, which is a really strange way to look at it. But that market is still moving relatively well. It's the first home buyer market, the lower price point, that those buyers are still being squeezed by everything. They're uncertain about everything. Those are the buyers who are waiting on the sidelines.
Yeah, and Richard, I think that's a great teaser. Like, we've got our stats event coming up. Corey put the registration in the chat. We should do a deep dive on the tale of the two markets at the stats event and really dive into the differences in price ranges. And stay tuned for that, because I think that's very accurate. All right, let's move into some of these articles. So this lady, I think this is a little tongue-in-cheek and crazy, but I never owned a pet rock. I don't know. Did anybody on here ever own a pet rock? I can't imagine somebody selling rocks and making $1 million doing it, but apparently somebody did. Well, what her comment is this private listing networks are the newest pet rock. And I think she's being tongue-in-cheek, but she's actually going out on a limb and calling it a fad. And she's saying, created by brokerage trying to outrun and outscale aggregators like Zillow, which is probably some truth to that, meaning Zillow got so powerful in our industry because they took control of our data, right? And maybe this is a strategy to pull that power back, but it makes it appear as if sellers need more choice, as if brokerages and agents aren't doing that already and they haven't been for decades. So I don't know. I thought it was kind of fun analogy, but as I said, you know, what's our stance on private listing networks? We're watching the industry make changes and moves and stuff like this. And I've made mention on this call before, we have technology we could turn on immediately to do it. Yet I'm just not sure it's the right strategy yet. I think it's a little risky with your licensing. And I also know that you could potentially cause harm to your sellers if the aggregators won't list the listing on their sites because you pre-marketed it with a private listing network. So it was just a fun, quick article. I don't think we need to have a lot of conversation about it. But more importantly, this one I need you to pay attention to. So according to Realtor.com's real estate, this week is the peak of the buying season week, meaning this is the sweet spot for people to buy a home this week. So I was talking to a top agent last week about this article, and I said, well, I get it, like, okay, newsworthy article, but what are you doing with it? She said, I'm doing a giant PR campaign and we're holding all our listings open this week with the tagline, buy a house in the most optimum time of the year, according to Realtor.com. And they're doing an open house blitz based on the sweet spot of buying houses. And if you read into the article, it talks about why. And if I can get it, I lost it. Hold on.
Well, it has everything to do with, it's really a buyer. It's the
Yeah,
peak
go
time
ahead.
for a buyer to score the best possible deal relative to seasonality.
Correct.
That's where they were going. It's not the peak time to sell, like the highest volume. Obviously, October's not the volume
But this is
capital of the world.
specifically geared towards buyers, right?
Yeah, it's opportunity because sellers who've been on the market and now probably feeling a little bit of duress and stress about the holidays coming and their transition plans, And for some buyers, have packed up their effort because now it's kids are back in school and they're distracted or no longer focused on summertime, the frenzy of running around looking at houses on the weekends.
Here's some of the talking points. Realtor.com projects that the third week in October could offer 32.6% more active listings than the start of the year. For buyers, that means more choices without the pressure of peak season competition, and those who buy during this window could save over $15,000 compared to summer peak prices for a median price home of $440. And obviously you could adjust these numbers based off of your average sales price, but I started thinking about this, like this is newsworthy in the sense that you could create strategy from it. So I went to ChatGPT this morning and I said, hey, please write me a social media reel for this article. And I gave it this article. And it basically said, mark your calendar. The week of October 12th through the 18th may be the best time of the year to buy a home. According to Realtor.com's 2020-25 best time to buy report, inventory is up to 32.6% more listings than at the start of the year. Prices are trending down. Listing prices are 3.4% below seasonal peaks. This adds up to 15,000 potential savings. Less competition, buyer demand is down versus peak season, giving you more breathing room. But here's the deal. Get your finances, know your article, blah, blah, blah. I could record this. So I sent it to my assistant to create me an AI reel for this. And I'll actually post it later today. But I think this is kind of the strategy here is how do you take this kind of information and turn it into marketing messaging, right? Like it's the messaging that matters here more than the actual data. And a couple things came out of that 6 hours I was spending with Gary, but one of them he said, look, having a database has always been the foundation of every great real estate business. He said, but I'm not ready to put it in a book or stand on stage and say it. But I actually think social media might be overtaking that thought process. And I was like, whoa, that's a big statement. Like the content creation on social media might actually have a bigger effect on your real estate sales business than email marketing drips to a database. So we're pushing hard on this kind of stuff. All right.
It creates intrigue, Brad. It creates someone who's on the fence. I think Richard nailed it. It's not people who are completely out of the market that are now jumping in. It's people that have been on the sidelines, with a checkbook in their pocket, but just waiting for that right moment and the right, 1% shift or something to cause them to lean in and look at a house or go meet and consult where they've just been waiting. And that's what this article does in my mind. Creates an offer, an opportunity, some intriguing data to support, hey, don't miss the opportunity. Fear of loss is a great motivator.
Yeah. Jeff, you got a question?
Real briefly, I just posted what we posted a couple days ago in the chat. It's a real simple ad. I'm not kidding you. We got 2 phone calls yesterday. We're writing 2 offers just because somebody clicked because they felt good about writing this week. It was that ridiculously silly.
Good for you.
I love it, man. Appreciate it. All right, so this one gets weird, but breathe through it. And actually, it's got positive news for us in Florida. The third thing Gary Keller made a crystal ball prediction on, he said he actually thinks the country's about to slide into an economic recession. He said, but I want to be clear. He said, I don't think we're going into a housing recession. I actually think we're in a housing recovery, but the economy might slide into a recession. And then I saw this article and it made me think, well, real estate's hyperlocal, but I also think economic conditions are hyperlocal too. And obviously this is very different depending on where you live in the country. And the red states on this graph represent having a high risk of recession, and the green states are actually expanding and doing really well. And obviously, you can. Is somebody drawing on my screen? Y'all see?
That's interesting.
All right, interesting.
It's fairly permanent.
Hopefully, it stays
as you scroll.
here. All right. So then you get down here and it starts talking about, meanwhile, states with the softest housing markets as measured by weak price growth and slow moving inventory, such as Texas, Florida, and Arizona, are flagged by Moody's as having still expanding economies, which could limit the downturn in housing there. So I actually think we're probably projected to have a healthy housing market in Florida going forward. Now, do we have some challenges? Yes. Do we have condo inventory challenges? Yes. However, we're still projecting price appreciation going into next year, and we're actually projecting sales increase going into next year, regardless of everything else that people are reading in the national news. So I think you should see this as a cautionary tale of what you're going to see on a national media stage, but at the same time know that Florida is actually in an expanding market right now, and that's pretty healthy. Thoughts?
Brett, I mean, the whole purpose of these morning calls is to prepare ourselves for what our buyers and our sellers and our database are seeing out there in the national news. And this is incredible information for everybody in this group, in the Inspire group, to take it and run with it. I agree with Gary. Social media is it's just blasting off. You just have to make your reels every single week.
There you go.
I'll add something quick too. The definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters where GDP falls. That doesn't automatically mean it's a bad or good time to buy a house. That's a local market decision based on, expertise and trends in your supply and demand curve. And so I think to Steve's point, when the consumer hears just a barrage of information, you've got to help them filter through it and make good decisions. Recession doesn't mean don't buy. It's just another indicator of market condition and trajectory.
Actually, you could almost redefine recession as it's a smart buy.
It depends on the local market and your needs and wants.
All right. Inventory. So
And I agree.
inventory peaked in August. And remember, we were going through these numbers, and I was trying to see, like, if we were in Broward County, single family, these numbers were in the thousands, and it's come down since, right? So is that a good or bad thing? I see it as a very positive thing, because the reality of this is the real estate market and pricing has everything to do with the relationship between supply and demand. And because demand was a little softer over the last 12 months and inventory was growing at exponential rates, it was putting us at big risk of price depreciation. So if inventory softens and we allow demand to start to increase, which, I'm making the comment at the beginning of this call that the market's speeding up in a lot of sectors. So that means demand is speeding up and inventory is coming down. It's actually going to hold prices pretty great for our market going forward. And then it's just a matter of, if we can get these rates down, people will put the pedal to the metal and start buying houses at a faster rate again. I think we're sitting pretty going into 2026. My opinion. I don't know what these blue lines are. Do y'all see these blue lines?
Yeah, they're there. They're on
Scared.
your screen.
I'm very sorry about that. I'm so sorry. I think it was me. I was taking screenshots for my notes so I can do reels.
Okay.
I don't know how I did that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm just like paranoid over here, because I remember when Zoom first came out, like, people would hack into it and start drawing interesting photos on the screen. So as long as it wasn't, I wasn't hacked, we're good, Frankie.
That was awesome for you to acknowledge that. I might have just sat back and waited to text Brett later.
All right, good. We'll leave
High
it.
integrity, high
Exact
integrity
show here
right there.
soon. I don't think this is anything of new information. South Florida leads nation in buyer-seller imbalance for condos. I think it's an awareness thing. Miami has 251% more condo sellers than buyers. That's crazy numbers. However, I thought that one thing that was rather interesting is there's actually a part of the country that is worse, which is San Antonio, which makes no sense to me, but it was interesting. I guess the question is, and maybe this is something, Richard, we flush out at the stats presentation, but if you're a condo listing agent, your skills and your pricing and your strategy is everything right now. And maybe we put a tight presentation together around what does that mean? Any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. All right. Moving on.
I mean,
No, I'll chime in. I think that's a great idea because we're seeing a lot more movement in the condo market now, and it seems to be the condos that are on the market more recently. If they're sitting there with days on market, clearly they're not priced right. But when they come out of the gate and they're priced right, they are moving right now. So I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to talk about you better have the best price, the best condition, the best presentation the minute you hit the market if you're a
Mhm.
client.
Yeah.
All right, so I did predict this, but the reality, I just want you aware that there's a wave of foreclosures, there's a wave of short sales coming. We probably need to be on top of the training. And it's kind of crazy to me because of the amount of price appreciation or equity growth homeowners had over the last 10 years. But you remember back to the conversation, if the country slides into some economic recession, that fuels this conversation even more. And I don't think this is specific to any price range. I can tell you there's probably a lot of second homes that people bought when they were flush with cash, and now they might be as flush with cash. I don't know. We'll see, but we're going to study this. I just wanted you aware that, I mean, Rick, we've talked for years, like the percentage of foreclosures or short sales in the marketplace was like less than 1% for, I was going to say, it was like not even worthy of talking about. And yet I think about the real estate agents in our world. The last time short sales and foreclosures were a thing was over 10 years ago, really. And the amount of agents that have no experience with that inside of our organization is probably very vast. And so this is a time you got to lean in and understand what this means. Come on, Richard Bass, our broker, what's your thoughts?
To me, this is media headlines to sell their clicks. Foreclosures are still a fraction of what historically foreclosures have always been. You look at those graphs and, for a long period of time, we were bouncing along a bottom with almost zero foreclosures. So when they're reporting that foreclosures are up, 300%, you went from one foreclosure to three. It's not a big number yet. Will it ever happen? Guys, you read the numbers and close to 50% of all properties owned are free and clear. Those people have no chance of going into foreclosure. Then you've got another percentage of people that have over 20% equity in their homes. They're not going into foreclosure either. My gut feel is, and I'm dealing with a legal issue with one of our agents right now. You're dealing with people that have bought their homes within the last 3 years at a higher interest rate, and they're just not making their mortgage payment. And these are people that got into it, whether it was an investment, and one of these properties that we're dealing with right now, it was. This woman bought $1 million home, rented it out, and never made a mortgage payment on it.
That's fraud. Yeah.
She was taking the income from the rental, and now she's screaming and yelling that we weren't telling her, what it was she had to do.
Yep.
You can't deal with crazies. That's always going to be there. There will always be some of those people out there.
Yep. And you can't teach intelligence.
Hey,
So,
Brett.
Yeah.
Now,
Alex?
Alex, I see your name up on the screen. You've dealt with more bank-owned properties than probably anybody consistently. What are you starting to see? What are you hearing there?
What I would probably say, I belong to two organizations right now, National Association of Default Properties and NRBA. And I've been doing REO property for probably about 25 years. Right now, in certain areas of the country, there is a slow uptick to some of these properties. Down here in South Florida, like Richard said, there's still too much equity in properties. And unless you're a real, I don't know what the word would be, if you go into foreclosure, you should still be able to turn around and sell your property pretty quickly and even walk away with some money. The areas that I see probably that are going to have some troubles are going to be the condo associations, where people are falling behind because of either assessments or their HOA dues. And it's usually going to be the HOAs that'll probably be the part that starts the foreclosure process. So that's the area that people need to focus on. If people are thinking about trying to get the listings on that, Richard, I think you'll probably agree, that's a big challenge. You have to start jumping through some hoops, getting subscriptions to certain software programs and such. I think as it starts ticking a little bit better, I might do some classes at the office as far as what you need to do. But like anything else, you got to invest in some of the programs.
Alex, one of my thoughts is, I don't know that we're going to see such a big uptick in foreclosures, but I think we're going to see an uptick in short sales. Would you agree with that?
I don't know. I don't really have that answer. Yeah, I'm familiar with the short sales, but again, I don't know whether or not that's going to be the challenge, or whether or not they'll just go right to foreclosure.
Got it. All right. Well, guys, we're at time, but I just want to make a comment before we close today. I hope you appreciate this conversation is about real talk. I mean, I've made a decision years ago as a leader, like, we could come on these calls as leaders and only have the good, positive, shiny articles, or we could be real with you and talk about all things that are going on in the real estate industry. And we made a decision to only have real talk because we think that's what you need the most. It's not for us just to give you the shiny, happy people presentation on these. So sometimes we come on and it's not the most positive of articles, but I think it's a worthy conversation to surround everybody with. So I hope you appreciate that and understand that when, I don't know, I sent those articles last night, and then I looked back at them and went, man, is there a positive one on here? I don't know. Okay, the best week to buy a house. But I hope you appreciate that and understand we're committed to bringing you any and all real talk on these calls. So.
Well done,
Sure.
Brett.
So I have a question, Brett. The data for single-family housing in Broward and Miami-Dade suggests that we're bottoming, right? Or that we've seen an uptick in pending and closed sales, right? So me personally, I've had there of posting on social media that now would be the time to get your house on the market if you do have to sell. But the fear is that we're wrong and that it's just a blip, right? That it's something short term. What are your thoughts on going out there and saying it looks bottoming, or the market is actually getting stronger with the news and the data being so recent?
I think there's a difference between a reel and a story. And I think you could simply do a story in social media that lasts for 24 hours saying, hey, I just got off an industry update call. We're looking at numbers and we're talking about how the market and the indicators are saying that things are speeding up. If this is something, create the storyline and the hook and do a story. Obviously, time specific stuff doesn't last long on reels, but on your story, I think you're not in any jeopardy, in my opinion, of talking about a conversation that was had that morning and put it on a story that lasts 24 hours. Anybody else have a thought?
Well, nobody has a crystal ball. And I think it comes down to, I think the answer is now a good time to sell. As always, it depends. And let's sit down and consult, your strategy, your timing, what the probable outcome would be. And then how are you going to repurpose the revenue or the income from the sale? Because if you're buying another property in the same market, there's no bad market, just a market. And how do you win in this market if the timing's right?
All right. Happy Monday. Have a good one.
Great
Good stuff,
question.
guys. Bye.
Thanks for the question, Dan.